to today's video interview. I'm Saskia from rawfreedom.co.uk and I have the great joy of interviewing the beautiful Rebecca Kane from Shine on Raw today. Hello Rebecca.
Hey Saskia, it's great to be here.
So lovely to have you here. I know we've had this booked in the diary for months and I've just been so looking forward to it and kind of getting to know you better as well, because I know, we've met once at VegFest and just had such a lovely connection, and to actually be here chatting is really lovely.
It is, it's fantastic.
So I think probably, I'd like everybody to know about what you do, and I think the best thing is for you to explain that.
Thank you. I show people how to transform their diets, increase the energy and the vitality of the food that they eat, and really, some people call me the Nigella of the raw food world. I consider myself the hairy bikers of the raw food world, because I take raw food recipes and just make them really easy. I think my longest recipe takes about 20 minutes, because often when people hear about raw food, they think it's like, sprouting, dehydrating, re-sprouting, and it can take like 3 or 4 days to create food. And of course, we can make recipes like that, but I'm much more of a one-pot wonder, get everything done, and everything in one go, sorted, making it really, really accessible for everyday people. My first experience of raw food, my first experience of really getting into food was when I moved away from home, went to university, and I lived off toast. So, my whole ethos around food is it's got to be really, really simple, and it's got to fit into everyday life.
Brilliant. I mean, that's I think when I first got into raw food, most of the recipe books were just so complicated, and it was just kind of like, learning how to do simple, quick recipes was just like, you have to do it, because I don't know about you, but I was busy working, and it just didn't really make sense to be doing something that took 3 days to make, soaking, sprouting, dehydrating.
Yeah. And also full of ingredients I'd never even heard of or couldn't get hold of. So, all of my recipes pretty much, apart from things like cacao powder, you can get everything in your local supermarket. So, really, really easy food, real food for real women with real lives, So.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about the Shining Kitchen, which is it's new, isn't it? Your new membership.
It is.
Wow, yeah. So exciting.
My second baby of the year.
Yes, I know. Okay, so just so that everybody knows, Rebecca has had a baby. How old is Solly now?
He is 5 months old.
5 months old. And how long was it before you were back at work?
Oh my goodness, probably weeks. It wasn't very long. You couldn't keep me out of the kitchen. I think the first thing I made was a cheesecake, and that was up on Facebook being shared. The recipe was shared, and people are like, "How have you done that? You have a little baby." But he's the best baby ever. I mean, I know everyone says that, and I'm just like the mum cliche. But he's so good. He's so happy. He's just a really easy baby, so that helps.
Yeah, fantastic, brilliant. So, can you tell us how you first got into raw food?
Sure, it was kind of by accident, and for probably about a decade, I didn't even realise what I was doing had a title. I didn't realise it was called raw food. Back when I was about 20, and I'm 36 now, I developed eczema, really, really severe eczema. Not the kind of eczema that's like in the creases of your elbows, but my whole face was bright red and shiny. My arms, sorry if anyone's eating, this is really quite gross. My arms were red and weeping, and the only part of my body it didn't get was my torso. My legs were weeping, and they were just like bright red and shiny. And so the first thing I did was cut out processed food. So, I got rid of the dairy, I got rid of the sugar, I got rid of the wheat, everything that was supposed to help my eczema, but it didn't. However, what I did notice, I was eating a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables, I was having a lot of smoothies, and everything I made was from scratch. My skin was looking hideous still, but I'd never felt so amazing. I didn't care that my skin was bad, because internally I felt so connected to who I was. My mind was so clear. I was like, well, if this is the price, so be it. But I hadn't really quite made the connection at the time. So that's how I first got into raw food, but without knowing what it was. I just knew that it made me feel amazing to eat, natural food.
Yeah, and I know that we spoke about the fact that what got us so excited about it was not just kind of how energetic we felt, but also the kind of emotional and spiritual sides of it as well. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, it's just like waking up in the morning. I mean, this is what I always want to say. This is what I say to my clients: is I want people like waking up in the morning with a spring in their step and a yippee in their heart for no reason. You know, when you look at small children, just have that sense of joy and play, and you know, they're happy to go kick leaves and splash in puddles. I was experiencing that all the time, and I was like, this isn't normal. But of course that is normal, but we're so far removed from what normal is, you know, deadened down by, you know, processed foods and crap and negativity and, you know, not really, well, not living our joy, that people thought I was the weird one. And I was like, that's such a shame, isn't it? You know, just because I am just so connected into being happy and joyful, that's for me what raw food did. So yeah, I guess that's the spiritual side, yeah.
And you know, I mean, you don't have eczema now, so
No.
So what happened with your eczema?
Oh yes, I was the skeptic, you know. A friend of mine said go and see a kinesiologist, and I was like, what's one of those? And today, most people have heard of kinesiology, but still not everybody, and we're talking 16 years later. So 16 years ago, I was like, that sounds like a load of hocus pocus, I'm not going. And my skin was getting worse. And so in the end, I was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a go, because to be honest, I would give anything a go, because it was just, you know, it was annoying me by that point. And I went along. The first thing she did was check food allergies, no food allergies. But after the first session, it stopped weeping. I was still bright red and shiny. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, must be a coincidence. Anyway, the second time I went back, she detected it was an environmental pollutant that was causing my skin issue. And I'd actually, in a former life, I used to teach multi-activities like climbing and abseiling, and I'd spent some time in North Wales teaching kids climbing and abseiling. And as I went into the area, there was an enormous amount of electricity pylons, and I just happened to mention this, and that's what we pinpointed the problem with. And at the time, I just moved into Shrewsbury, and I rented a flat that had an electricity pylon in the back garden. And as soon as I left that, as soon as I strengthened my system, the eczema went, and it's never come back. So yeah, the EMFs out there, that's what shut down my system. And when I think about it, I was bright red and shiny, like I had radiation burns, even though that's like a different frequency. But yeah.
Yeah, that is so amazing. I always feel completely weird when I go underneath electricity pylons. I'm like, this is not right. And you see houses that are kind of right next to them. And yeah, I mean, you're obviously incredibly sensitive to that kind of stuff, and your body reacted.
I just remember thinking I felt really, really lucky that it had come out through my skin and not through my liver or my kidneys or my lungs, because it was my skin, I could see it very clearly. I knew something was wrong. My body was saying, you know, help. It was literally screaming, going, help, you know, there's something not right. So I went and got that cleared up. And because I was just like, that's so weird, that shouldn't work, you know, I had to then go off and train. And sure enough, since then I've been practicing kinesiology, witnessing, I think you can only describe them as miracles, you know, just things that you just like, I just can't believe something so simple, rebalancing the body, strengthening it with a few little things, and it's, you know, completely different, transforms people's lives. It's incredible. So that with raw food is ridiculously powerful.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I can imagine the combination of raw food and kinesiology just being incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And it's like when you eat the raw food, you know, we have the term clean eating these days. That's like the little buzzword of the moment, isn't it? And it's like cleaning the vehicle of the body. And I think that when you have energy work, whether it's kinesiology or any kind of other energy work, on top of having a clean body, it's like the frequency and the vibration just happens that much faster, because there's nothing to stop the flow of the meridians. There's nothing holding it up or slugging your system down. Because we know what it's like, you know, if you have, I don't know, a peanut butter sandwich or, you know, a huge roast dinner, you end up feeling really sluggish, your system feels really slow. But when you have the fresh vibrancy of raw food, it makes your body zing, doesn't it? It just makes everything flow that much clearer. I know that when I'm eating a really high raw food diet, the intuition is just incredible. It's like ping, 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 ping. And that's how I feel the energy works as well. You know, it just goes straight through. So it's exciting stuff. Oh, and it's just food.
Yeah, I know, isn't it amazing? God, I think we're so lucky to have discovered it. And obviously anyone who's watching us now is either curious about raw or is already kind of introducing raw food into their diets. And I think, so it's like spreading the love and the kind of, because it is experiential, you know. A lot of people say to me, oh, do you have a nutrition degree or anything like that? And I'm like, no, it's all experiential. Everything that I do is about actually living the experience Nutrition is a whole nother field, and for me, my whole thing is about falling in love with life and experiencing, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like that excitement and.
For me, it's about falling in love with yourself, and it's about getting to know yourself and getting rid of the labels. Sometimes in my life I'm 100% raw, sometimes I'm not, and I don't have big drama about that. It's about doing what's right for you at that moment in time. Now, if I lived somewhere where it was gorgeously sunny all the time, I'm sure I'd eat much greater times at 100% raw. But when I got pregnant, because of the energetic properties of raw food generally being cooling and wet, and in Chinese medicine, when you're pregnant, they call the baby a ball of phlegm. So actually, it really affected my spleen energy, and my system was really damp. And I hadn't really thought about it, apart from, instead of being really vibrant and jumping out of bed, I felt really lethargic and really like, ugh. And it just felt to me more than pregnancy. I mean, I know my body really well. I know when it's out of kilter. And I was like, this just feels wrong. And as luck would have it, or not, as intervention happens, I had a appointment already booked in with a naturopath, and he explained to me what I needed to do. And as soon as I added in one cooked meal a day, and that was lentils, high protein, lots of lentils, and being vegetarian is kind of my best source of protein, straight away my energy lifted again. So had I gone, oh no, I have to be 100% raw, it would have ruined my pregnancy, which actually was really, really easy. Thank you very much, universe. Just to have a label, and that's ridiculous. It's about listening to your own body and knowing, when you need to up the raw food, or maybe when you need to slow things down again, or when you need to have more warmth and more comfort. So for me, it's about learning to listen to your own body.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just brilliant. I love everything that you're saying. And I mean, what sort of cooked foods do you eat then? You said lentils. What else do you eat? Yeah,
pretty much lentils. I at the moment, because I'm breastfeeding still, I'm living off either, like, for breakfast it'll be like fruit chias. I love my chia seeds, or some kind of like porridge that I've made, like soaked overnight. Lunch would be like salads, loving avocado. Oh, I can't get enough avocado, honestly. When people tell me they don't like avocado, I'm really confused. I'm like, really? And and I usually have a bowl of lentils at the time. I make like soups or khichdis or dals. So yeah, it's just lots of red lentils at the moment.
Yeah,
so that's the main cooked food that I have. Or sometimes if I've made like courgette pasta, I just like warm that in the pan just to take the cold edge off it. So.
Yeah, I do that as well. I'll either have it raw, or I'll like blanch it in hot water, or I'll mix it together with some kind of like king soba rice noodles or something like that, and have a mix of raw and cooked, and I find that works really well as well. Yeah. So one of the things that I love, when I was kind of finding out a bit about you earlier, was you were talking about having had the most amicable divorce ever, which you think was a lot to do with the raw food.
Yeah, sorry Tom if you're watching. Tom and I have been together for 10 years, and the whole time it was just brilliant. And I started eating much higher amounts of raw food, and as I do that, and when I work with my clients, for me it's about really reconnecting to who you are, and your whole value system, the feelings that you want to experience every day. And I suddenly realised that actually the relationship wasn't. It's really terrible. It's one of those things. I remember saying to Tom at one point, I wish something had happened that we would fall out. We'd have a reason, a proper bona fide reason to split up. And instead, we had just classically just grown apart. So we've made the decision to split up, and ever since then, we've been great friends. I was just saying to you before we started recording, actually, when I had Solly, he was one of the first people to come down and bring us both presents. And he's been down a couple of times since, buying us little presents. And we're still very much, he has 2 children, and I'm still in contact with them as well, because I was with them for 10 years. So although we don't have children together, we have I call them bonus children. So yeah, we just made amazing friends and looking out for each other and getting advice of each other, because still, he knows me better than most people, because we spent 10 years together. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ridiculously amicable. I mean, of course, there were times when it was a little bit tricky, and it was very, very sad. But there was no hatred, and there was no drama around it. I think there were feelings, and there were some sad feelings, and you know, as when anything ends, that, you know, there's always like a sadness and a grief period, but there was never any of the anger or the drama or the hate calling or any of the stuff that when my parents got divorced that happened. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And I think we were talking about how when you're eating high raw, you're so much less reactive. You know, in your relationships, your friendships, your relationships with your family, your partner, whoever it might be, you're actually, it's like you can suddenly just see things for what they are. There's no need for the drama.
Absolutely. Things just are. You know, it's like, it's Shakespeare, isn't it? It's like there's nothing good or bad, only thinking makes it so. And it's like, okay, I'm feeling this at the moment, and I'm going to give myself time to experience that, instead of making it into a big drama and nurturing it and, you know, fostering any kind of bad feelings. It's like, you know, this will pass. It's just an emotion. Emotions kind of like the waves of the sea, aren't they? They just come and then they go, and that's it. So yeah, very too amicable. No, very amicable, and we'll keep it with that.
Brilliant. So I know, like me, you kind of have had a history of emotional eating and yo-yo dieting, and I mean, I've never really particularly been into yo-yo dieting, but I used to, you know, I mean, I'm still, whatever I am, 7.5, 8 years into my raw journey, I still, you know, it hasn't gone completely, but I don't binge anymore. I can be sad without stuffing my face. I can be angry without stuffing my face. You know, all these kind of things that in the past used to just be kind of automatic responses. And I just wanted to hear a little bit about your journey with dieting and emotional eating.
My journey was never that obvious. It was a bit more sneaky than that. I mean, I grew up in a house where my mum was always on a diet. You know, there was Weight Watchers, there was Slim Fast, there were counting calories, there was eating by colours, there were powders and shakes and videos, and they would, you know, I could never understand that they would have like diet drinks so they could have a cream cake. In my head, it just never made sense. So when I was, you know, 10 or whatever it was, I was like, that's not going to be my life. You know, I'm not going to be ruled by food. And it wasn't until probably 10 years later that I went, oh my God, I followed that same pattern. But because I hadn't done traditional dieting, I had never considered myself a dieter. But instead, I'd eaten from my Ayurvedic constitution, you know, I'd food combined, food uncombined, you know, I'd done all these other things, but because they were based on real food, for me, they felt natural and healthy. And it wasn't until one day I took stock and I looked back over the past decade and I was like, oh my God, my weight had been a complete roller coaster. You know, I'd been anything from a size 10 to a size 14, which really should have been a 16, but I wasn't prepared to buy the next pair of clothes. And you looked in my wardrobe and, you know, it was a huge range of different size clothes. And I remember always reading in the magazines about yo-yo dieters, and I'm like, how can you not know you're a yo-yo dieter? I mean, come on, it's really obvious. And it took me a decade to go, oh God, that was my story. So although, like you know, I could be angry without eating, it was more to do with generally what was going on in my life rather than a particular incident. So if I got mad, I wouldn't suddenly go and want to binge eat. But if my life was going really well and everything was flowing, I just wouldn't, you know, I'd eat foods that supported me. And I think that's very much about, you can tell how, well, I think that you can tell how a person feels about themselves by the food that they're eating. If they're eating a lot of junk food and a lot of processed food, something's not right in their body because they're treating it like a garbage can. Whereas if you're feeling really happy, everything's going really well, you want to eat foods that nurture yourself. You know, you love yourself, so you want to treat yourself to foods that love you too. And so that was my own experience. When I look back, periods of my life where I was really happy and content, I'd eat really, really well. And periods of my life where I was like maybe doing a job I didn't like, or maybe have friends or relationships that were particularly quite negative, then I'd be eating more of the crap food. So for me, if I find myself suddenly craving, my classic is like a peanut butter sandwich on white bread. If I find myself craving that, I'm like, hang on a minute, what's actually going on? I mean, if I want to eat that, that's fine. You know I'll feel crap afterwards, but I always give myself permission to eat whatever I want. And then the reality is, before I do that, though, I'm like, hang on, check in with yourself. You're craving this food, so what's really going on? What's the real issue? Go and deal with that, rather than distracting yourself by eating something that's terrible, that's going to make you feel crap afterwards, because for me, that's just a distraction. So for me, the food is just it's almost like a barometer for my soul about what's actually going on for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm completely with you there. And I think that's for me, like the raw food has become almost less about the food and more about a journey of self-love and self-understanding.
Yeah, completely with you there.
So actually, you know, if you end up eating more or less cooked food, if you can do it with love and with awareness, that's actually the important part.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with someone once, and when I asked them what they had for breakfast, they were really proud of themselves because they had a green smoothie, but they put so much into it that it just sounded disgusting, you know. But they put loads of superfoods in there, and they made sure there were like various greens in there, and there's ginger and there are powders, and I was like, that sounds disgusting. And they're like, oh, it is, but I know I've got my goodness for the day. I'm like, no, 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 stop. You're better off having, you know, something much, just, you know, less what you'd say nutritionally dense food, but actually enjoy what you're having. And I still say to people now, you're better off having something like a cream cake and really enjoying it, not feeling guilty, not hiding it, not having any shame about it, but having that cream cake, enjoying it, rather than holding your nose while you drink a smoothie that just tastes disgusting. Because it's not just the food that gives us nutrients, I don't believe. It's the environment in which you eat it, it's the intention you have that when you eat it. And if you're like sharing food with friends, I mean, it's just love. I still to this day love sharing food with friends, because you're taking on so much more than just the nutrients. You know, you talked about nutrition at the beginning. It's such a new science. There's so much more to discover. And you know, I am a complete believer that Mother Nature is absolutely magical. You know, there's a whole world out there, and we can't describe how she works. And when we eat an apple, we're not just getting some fibre and some vitamins and minerals, we're getting everything that holds that apple together. So when people take vitamins in isolation, sometimes it's necessary. But when people think they can get everything that they need just from like pills and powders and things like that, I think it's quite difficult, because you're not getting everything else that we haven't yet discovered that lies within the apple or the carrot or the pineapple or the blueberries or, you know, whatever it is that you're eating.
I'm so with you there. And it's that thing where, like, if you eat a peanut butter sandwich on your own in a darkened room, or you eat a peanut butter sandwich with mates out in the garden, you'll feel completely different afterwards.
Yeah, no, completely. If you're hiding it, or, you know, a lot of people that I meet, they do a lot of driving and they like have a whole family packet of crisps with them, and they have such shame and they hide the wrappers. And I'm like, that's more negative and that's more damaging to yourself than just having that, you know, just at home and just enjoying the food. And at the end of the day as well, it's only food. You know, people get like so confused, like, oh, but I'm supposed to be having this and I should be having this, and should it be raw? What happens if it's cooked? Am I losing all the nutrients? And they get themselves so worked up. And it's like, let's just remember, this is only food. It's completely important. You know, the food we eat literally creates us from the inside out, but it is only food. There are other things that are so much more important in the world. So let's leave the drama, let's reconnect to ourselves, and let's find a way of a way of eating that works for us, knowing, like, for example, my journey, a year ago, before I was pregnant, a particular way of eating worked for me. When I was pregnant, I had to change that to respond to my body's needs. And now that I'm breastfeeding, I've had to change it again to respond to my body's needs. And in a year's time, the way that I eat will change again. And that's fine. So.
Yeah, I think that's lovely, that thing of actually realising that our relationship with learning how to eat the food that suits our bodies is going to evolve depending on our age, what's happening at life, how much stress we're going through, you know, the hormonal changes, whatever it might be, that actually there are so many different influencing factors on what makes a healthy diet for us here and now. And I don't think there is like one prescriptive way to eat that works for everybody.
No, not at all. And I think, you know, you read books written by people, and they're like, oh, it has to be 80-10, or it has to be that, you know, it has to be mainly fruit, or it's got to be mainly carbohydrates. And it's not that those people are lying. You know, what they've done is they found a way that's worked for them, and that absolutely, you know, they completely believe that's going to work for everybody, but it won't, because we're all so different. You know, going back to the kinesiology, if two people came to me with exactly the same symptoms, the way that I would treat them would be completely unique, because the way that they got those symptoms is unique to them and their story. So, you know, there isn't any one size fits all, because we're all beautiful and we're all completely different.
Yeah, and I think it's like, you know, actually what it can help us to realise is, I mean, I certainly know, you know, when I first got into raw food, I was kind of trying to follow all these other people who had had such amazing experiences and results from eating 100% raw, and then actually the more you just realise and get comfortable with your individuality, with your your innate creativity and your innate way of being in yourself, in the world, then the easier it is just to eat what you need to eat that suits your body.
And I think, you know, like any style of cooking, whether you're learning Chinese, whether you're learning Indian or learning to cook Mexican, raw food is a way of learning to cook. You know, instead of it being like this big, like, oh my God, it's raw food, it's going to be really difficult. It's just a style of cook or uncooking, and learning, you know, what you can do to create a creamy texture and what you can do to create different textures and flavors. And to be honest, the reason I love raw food is it's so easy. You know, only by adding too much onion or too much garlic can you ruin a dish. Everything else can be saved. And that's my kind of cooking, you know. Like I said earlier, my idea of cooking used to be toast, so it has to be easy. And so it is, and it's just about learning the basics and then going off to experiment. I always say to people, you know, that's my recipe, it's yours now, go and adapt it. You know, there's certain parts of that recipe that need to be there. But the rest of it, you know, I had someone say to me once, oh, I couldn't make your stir fry because I didn't have any red peppers. I'm like, well, leave them out. You know, use a green pepper, use a yellow pepper, don't have peppers in it at all. You know, just use whatever's in your fridge. That's how I do most of my recipes. You know,
I love it.
We're fun.
We're just so in alignment that, like you're saying, like raw food is just another genre of cooking, like Thai or Italian or whatever it might be. Like you're adding it to your repertoire, and it just happens to be incredibly good for you as well.
Yeah.
So how do you? I mean, in what ways do you work with clients?
As you mentioned earlier, I've just opened up the Shining Kitchen, which I love. I take on one-to-one clients, and it's almost like rewriting their food story. So taking them from being completely overwhelmed, and, you know, quite often people have had some, like we talked about earlier, like emotional eating and things like that. And it's about getting them to learn about how to fit more raw food, because I'm never about being 100%. I don't think that's, you know, particularly healthy for anybody, because I think once you start putting percentages in and you start getting hung up on like, oh, can I have nutritional yeast because it's not 100% raw? I think that, like we talked earlier, it's an unhealthy way to look at food. Some people suit 100% raw, but I don't. That's not my aspiration. You know, if I'm not 100% raw, I don't beat myself over the head with it. So people come to me usually because they want to add more raw food to their diet, but not be 100%, and they want to know how to add it in having a family. And so I, you know, just show them how to do that. But once we've done the raw food, what I find happens is like revealing a layer. Once you remove the raw food and you kind of don't have the go-to foods to numb down those feelings, people end up with a kind of, who am I? There's something in me that doesn't feel quite right. Actually, I've been suppressing this for years. Why are these feelings bubbling up? And that's when I do the work that I really, really love. And it's that deep transformational work about getting women back in touch with who they really are at a core level of their being, and showing them how to show up in the world as their authentic self with confidence, and, you know, just being the amazing people that we are. Because I do want everybody to jump out of bed in the morning with that spring in their step and that yippee in their heart, being exactly who they're meant to be. We're not supposed to be the same as each other. We're here all to be unique, and we all have something amazing to share. And, you know, the more people that we can get doing what they're passionate about, you know, whether it's, you know, crocheting, whether it's sharing about food, whether it's, you know, rescuing the orangutans they were in Borneo, whatever it may be, we need, just like every flower has a place in the garden, you know, every person is unique and beautiful and has their own place in the world as well. So that's where my work ends up working with people.
I love it. It's so exciting, isn't it? It's so exciting.
It's the food.
Yeah, I know. It's just amazing where you can get to just from cleaning up your diet. It's just phenomenal. So tell us about the Shining Kitchen. I'm really excited to hear actually what it really is.
Yeah, well, raw food, you can get recipes anywhere on the internet, can't you, really? And if it was that easy, everyone would be eating loads more raw food. But the truth is, people feel like they're doing something different. They feel like their friends and family are like rolling their eyes, and they don't know how to add it into their day, or they don't know how to go to a restaurant and have a high raw meal. So in the Shining Kitchen, it's a monthly membership program, and of course every month you get recipes and there's meal plans in there. But really, the way I've created this, it's so much more about community. It's so much more about looking at your relationship with food. So, you know, in the Shining Kitchen, there's how to set up your kitchen, there's how to set up different recipes, you know, to make sure that you're satisfying the way that you want to eat, whether it's seasonally, whether it's by emotions, whether it's by taste and texture. But we have monthly challenges. This month it was about cleaning. I can't believe it. So many people have just gone all out for this. The first challenge, and of course there's a prize which might have helped, was cleaning the kitchen. Yeah. You know, for the beginners, it was like clean a drawer or clean a shelf in your fridge. For the people that really want to go for it, it was like clean the whole kitchen. And we've had people redecorating, you know, painting walls, and it's just, I've been blown away by what people have done. And so it's really about the whole raw food adventure. It's not just about the recipes. And, you know, I'm about to start like a training series as well. And it starts off with, you know, setting the kitchen up for success, getting the recipes in order. And then it moves on to the emotional side of food, you know, how we use food, how we can upgrade those choices. You know, how is it you really use food, and get to that understanding of how actually do you want to show up in the world? What are those feelings that you want to be having? How can you bring those feelings into the food that you eat? You know, one of my feelings that I want to feel every day is vibrance. So if I want vibrancy in my life and then I'm eating foods that make me feel stodgy, that's out of alignment. So it's really easy for me to say peanut butter sandwich again. Okay, if I want to feel vibrant, if I eat this peanut butter sandwich, am I going to feel vibrant? Well, the answer is no. Okay, so I'm like, okay, I don't want that then. But my other option might be some like pineapple or blueberries, and I'm like, is that going to make me feel vibrant? And the answer is like, oh yes. And so that's how I'd make my choices. And it's just these little tools and techniques, although they're really simple, they're simple when you know them. And so this is what the Raw Food Kitchen is about. It's much more about community. It's much more about support. It's much more about going deeper with the whole raw food adventure and experience. But of course, there's really great food too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, your recipes always look absolutely divine. I mean, I remember saw on Facebook you'd done something that was inspired by a marathon, aka a Snickers bar, which I've had in my brain forever because it was my favourite chocolate bar before I went raw. And I was like, oh, she's done it, hooray!
I've even just made a Snickers cheesecake.
Oh, yum!
So yeah, that's gone down really, really well.
Yeah, so you know, I mean, I know, you know, it really helps to have fantastic recipes to do the deeper work. It's like, you know, if it tastes good, you want to make it, and then it's so much easier to actually make the changes and clean your diet up.
It's got to be quick, easy, with ingredients you can just get a hold of at your local supermarket, with equipment that you already have in your kitchen. So that's my ethos really. It's got to be really easy. It's got to be really tasty, and it's got to be something that you want to do. Yeah,
fantastic. So people can find out about The Shining Kitchen at www.theshiningkitchen.com, which I will also put below the video so that people can click on the link. Yes. And can you tell us how much is it?
Yeah, it's on special offer because the doors have only just opened, and it's $3 for your first 3 months. So it's like $1 a month. So what's that? Less than £2, I think, for 3 months worth of support, recipes. And then, and then after that, it works out about £5 a month after that. So it's super affordable.
Yeah, wonderful. It's like a kind of affordable way of doing the work that you do, and also, like you say, like keeping that sense of community so that you've got somewhere to kind of connect on a regular basis. And I love the fact you're doing challenges, because that's like, it just sort of so engages people. And
I love it. You know, I should have been a teacher. I'm queen of homework, so this is like my gentle way of doing homework. I'm like, a challenge. You know, some people love challenges, and some people would have watched from the sidelines. And it's just, you know, whatever. It's just, you turn up, you participate as much as you want or as little as you want. It's entirely up to you. So, you know, so obviously there's some people that are really active on the forum and the Facebook community, and there's other people that you just message me privately going, I am here. I'm just not really that, you know, into the whole community thing, which is great, but they just love like watching from the sidelines. So it's just whatever works.
Yeah,
it's got to be fun though. It's got to be fun and shiny.
Yeah, and that's what I love about everything you do, is that it is such fun. You know, there is this kind of lightness to it, which I think is so important, because a lot of the raw food stuff can be really quite worthy and heavy going. So
yeah, and there's also, you know, you think raw food is quite niche as a food genre, and then there can be quite a lot of meanness, I think, that goes on within the communities about, why are you using that? Don't you know that you shouldn't be using that? And it's like, you know, if you're coming from a standard diet, just adding some fresh fruit and vegetables into your diet, people should be congratulated on, not told it's the wrong fruit and vegetables. You know, it is a step, and something that I wholeheartedly believe, hopefully, you know, we will be around for the next 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years. And, you know, I plan to live for a long time. And you know, we haven't got to get this food stuff right tomorrow. We've got a whole lifetime to experiment, to refine, to get it right. You know, this isn't a diet as far as I'm concerned. It's not something that I'm doing for 21 days. It's a lifestyle, and it's here to support me for the rest of my life. And that's what I want people to take away, that this really is something that will support them, because, you know, food is a support for us. It's a tool almost, you know, for the rest of their lives. It hasn't got to be perfect tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, you know, if you can look back to last year and think that you're now eating healthier than you were last year, even if it's just a little bit, you're heading in the right direction.
Absolutely. Even if it's you just upgraded your chocolate brownies to my raw chocolate brownies.
Yeah,
bonus.
Exactly. And who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
Yeah, crazy people.
Brilliant. Rebecca, it's just so lovely speaking to you. So everybody who's watching, you know, please, it's such an amazing opportunity to go and become part of the Shining Kitchen for $3 for 3 months. You know, just go over, join. It sounds absolutely amazing. I'm going to join.
Yay! And something else that I forgot, because I love things looking pretty, is all the recipes each month. They come with their own recipe cards, so people could then just download the recipe cards they like and create their own folders. So I'm all about making it as easy as possible for people. So yeah, come and join us. Join the fun.
Brilliant. Yeah, it sounds absolutely gorgeous. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and letting me pick your brains about stuff.
It's been fabulous.
Yeah, lovely. All right, and I look forward to being in touch with you very soon, and I hope everybody who's been watching has enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. See you later.